here's a question that I think it comes, let's start with this first question. It's how to stick to a budget and manage costs for flipping. And I think whether you're flipping, as you guys said, flip to yourself, the BRRRR strategy, the renovations are the biggest thing. So how do you stick to a budget and manage costs for flipping? And for any major renovation, I guess.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, at least my approach with fix and flips, are go with a fixed price model with your contractor first and foremost. I have seen some people in the past that have adopted a per hour strategy. I even have one client, I remember he had his own crew and said, I'm going to pay these guys weekly. You got to realize that there's an incentive to drag on the project when you're paying people per hour. So my approach has always been upfront, getting exactly what that scope of work is, and essentially keeping them to that fixed cost. Because the big problem is, you're going to find, is that you're going to get that occasional ask of, oh, sorry, I didn't realize it's going to cost me more for it, whatever the case may be. You got to then shift that back on them, because you're going to get that. And it's a slippery slope once you start agreeing and becoming a nice guy or nice person. So I would always say, hold your contractor to what they told you. Okay, be very strict about that.
One of the questions we got during the show here that I like is, why is BRRRR so popular among investors? Why is the refinance part so important? So BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and often repeat. And so basically you buy a property, you flip it, like Michael was saying, but then instead of selling it, you go back to the bank, you get an appraisal at a higher price, and you go get a loan. So why is it so popular among investors, and why is the refinance part so important?
It's funny how BRRRR has become so popular, but I mean, it's been around forever. They just called it a fixer-upper, right? It's the same thing, but it's just become very popular because I think with the rising market and being able to recoup your capital and then recycle that capital, that's where it becomes really effective, because it's really hard for people to save money for their next investment, and this allows it to accelerate. So I think that's really what it comes down to, why it's so popular at the end of the day. It's just the ability to recycle capital faster.
And I bring that up in part because we have a question here that says, how long does it make sense to hold on to a one-bedroom condo in downtown Toronto? When should I sell it?
I'll talk a little bit about pre-construction. I mean, it's a bit of a different animal. One thing to take in consideration are taxation implications. So if it's in the there's different. Let's back up for a second. You can sell it as an assignment. You can sell it as soon as you close on it, or you can sell it a year after. Okay, if you're using it as an investment.
Yeah, in this case, it sounds like he's currently renting it out. Like it has already closed, but he bought it as a pre-construction.
Okay, so he's already done that. So I would say probably wait it out for the year so you avoid some taxation implications. If you sell it under a year, there may be some HST and also income tax as far as it being counted as capital gains versus business income. And right now the CRA is really tough on pre-construction new builds right now. So be mindful of that. But if you decide to sell it, my personal recommendation is always wait at least a year for that reason. Whether you decide to sell it is a personal decision. I mean, one thing I'll say about investing is that make sure it fits your lifestyle. I've had some clients that have properties that are working for them. They are the tenants are great. They're really busy people, and hence it just suits who they are, right? Meanwhile, other people maybe want to grow, so then they start to get into bigger sorts of assets. You've got larger multifamily properties, so reinvesting that into other things. So you got to ask yourself, well, is it working for me or is it not working for me, right? Like in my case too, I own that one in Oshawa I mentioned from the start, and I love it because it works for me. It's done so well. The tenants are great. I really don't see a need to sell it at this point in time.
Here's a question that you might find interesting. Why do so many investors start teaching new potential investors? Everyone wants to teach you how they did it for a big fee.
I don't charge anything. At the end of the day, it's there are some expensive coaching programs, and I've known people have taken them and have got a lot of value out of it. So I can't say it's not worth it for some people, especially, rather than trying to figure it out and learn from your mistakes. I mean, I think it's something worth considering.
I think
And that's
there's
the thing,
something
why
that
is it expensive? You know, some people say expensive. Well, because people's time is expensive. I mean, if you're going to hire someone that is making, let's just say, a really good return on their own time, and they're going to now invest into your time, it's got to be at least equal, if not more, right? Or else it's an opportunity cost for that individual. So you got to look at it from that perspective. If you have like a mentor, I don't know, like a high, I'm trying to think of a name, but if you had someone, let's say, that's really making some big bucks, but they're going to want something in return for that, and that's only fair. As you pointed out, Luke, like when you're working with like myself, I'm a realtor. I so happen to know about investing in real estate. So part of my service is having that expertise and understanding how that works and be able to guide that client through that process from start to finish. So I'm coaching them through that means, I guess, right? Just a bit of an indirect approach.
how do you find good deals in a seller's market?
The number one problem, honestly, is out of everything, you know, you've got, depends what strategy, but you got contractors, finding contractors, you got finding properties, finding money. But out of all those things, I'd say is the number one is finding good deals out there, right? I think for me, it's just a matter of casting a wide net. What's really powerful is networking. Like, for example, knowing Luke here for a number of years, I have bought numerous properties through his program there. They're great to work with, really straightforward and honest. So he's a great resource. So having a good wholesaler. And that was something that really wasn't, I would say non-existent, but it's only become much more common in the last few years. And that's partly to do with actually with Luke, and I was able to grow that business, honestly. It's great. Believe it or not, you can still get good deals from the MLS, despite what people think. If you know your stuff and you've got the right contacts, and you can kind of spot the deals where no one else can, there are still great deals on the MLS, and I'm sure everyone in this panel can agree. And I think just like when it comes down to even going back to what I said, networking, if you go to meetups, meet other investors, you'd be surprised by shaking hands with a few people what you can uncover.
So quick question here. How long can we refinance after buying our property? Minimum is 6 months or 1 year or 2 years?
Speaking as low as 6 months, I've seen. And pretty much, as Michael pointed out, it's just making sure that those comps make sense. And maybe it makes sense just to hold out just a little bit longer, just to get as much money as possible, because it may take you a while to refinance that property again.
Okay. All right, I'm looking at all the questions and trying to see what I can answer, kind of multiple questions together. I'm going to read two different questions, and we'll try to answer them together. So the first one is, what are your thoughts on turnkey investments where someone has flipped it and it is ready to rent and skipping the reno part? And the other question is there a place in real estate for someone with zero experience and interest in construction? Is it feasible to outsource it completely, and is it possible? Or would it make sense to invest in properties that don't require renovations, for example, pre-constructions, newly renovated?
There's a lot of questions in there. I heard the first one. It said selling without doing any work, right? That's what I.
Well, investing in turnkey investments that somebody else has flipped it and it's ready to rent, so you're skipping the rental part. The other question was also like, I'm not interested or want to do renovations. Can I just either completely outsource that, or can I deal with stuff that is already done?
You know what? The majority of people I deal with are busy professionals that prefer turnkey sort of solution for many reasons. One, it's obviously easier, it's less hassle. They don't want to deal with contractors because that's on its own a challenge. And the bank will finance the entire project, right? Whereas instead of you having to not only put up a down payment and finance the renovation, which is usually cash in most cases, you buy a turnkey and you basically put tenants in there and fill it, and that's it. And I've had clients, like I have a client that's a doctor, for example. He doesn't have time to do that type of stuff, manage contractors at the end of the day, right? So he wants turnkey, get a property manager in there and fill the property, and that works for him. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, you're probably going to save yourself some challenges along the way, because I'm sure Michael and Mandy can tell you that with the BRRRR of doing renovations and so on comes with its own set of challenges. Now they deal with contractors, we deal with appraisal, deal with banks, and it can sometimes drag on a little bit where you're not getting any rent in, and you're spending all this money on renovation, and now your bills are piling up, and it starts to kind of eat away at you. Whereas when you buy a turnkey, great, it's already cash flowing from day one, first and last month's rent, the day you close. Not a bad approach at all.